So to close off, for storytellers, I'm just going to give you a quick formula for two different scenarios. Scenario one is you don't have any ideas, but you have that urge to create. You've got a camera, you want to make a short film, but about what? You're not sure. So if you're in a film course or a creative writing program, this part will be especially useful to you. So what I recommend is starting at the top. So starting up in the clouds with the abstract terms. And you can jot this down or just think about it. Think about the themes, the words that really elicit a strong emotion in you specifically as the storyteller, as the writer. I'm just going to use greed for this example. Let's say I really hate greed. It really makes me upset when I see a greedy person. And I don't, I'm obsessed with greed, but I don't like it. Okay, so that elicits a very strong emotion. So now we have that abstract term. But you can't just write a story about greed because it's got to be about something specific. So now we go down, again, I'm using the trampoline, not the ladder. We go down to the specific, concrete, the bottom, the grass. And now I want you to begin thinking about, what do you know a lot about? Specific stuff. What are your hobbies? What's your job? For me, I can talk quite a bit about improv comedy or creating an independent production like this, where I'm setting up equipment and setting up cameras. I can talk about being a server, which was my last job. I'm not an expert yet, but I'm studying real estate. And so that could be something that I talk about in the future. But these are things that you have a strong expertise on. And again, it's not about being abstract. This is where you want to be specific and concrete. So if you're a PhD student and you know a lot about postmodernism, it's not going to cut it. But what might cut it is, okay, I know specifically what it's like to be a graduate student. Do you see the difference there? Because postmodernism, very lofty, abstract ideas. And yes, that person may be an expert, but they're also an expert in the specifics of being at a college campus, studying. Not saying it's the most entertaining stuff, but again, just stuff you specifically know about. So it's not your area of expertise per se, if it's an intellectual area, but the specific actions you know how to do well. Now let's say, okay, I've got that abstract term, greed, and again, this could be any number of terms, but we have greed, and let's say, being a server at a restaurant. So now I have the specifics. I know the intricacies of being a server, a day-to-day type of operation, and I know my abstract word that I want to focus on is greed. So let's combine those together. Maybe it's not a greedy server, maybe it's, a greedy kitchen worker, or maybe it's a greedy owner. Maybe they're pushing for more and more and more from the server. Or maybe the server is the greedy one, and they're constantly kind of going behind people's backs and trying to get more tips or taking tables when they're not supposed to. Again, this is not the most entertaining story, but I'm just showing you the process, how to think about this. So from there, we can create a premise. The premise might be greed destroys friendships. And the way I'm getting there is, I'm imagining this story of a server at a restaurant who slowly in the story gets greedier and greedier. And eventually by the end, they have no friends left at the restaurant. In the very end, maybe they get fired or they get in trouble because they've been doing something illegal related to money or greed. So now that I have this kind of plot structured, now I can start the dialogue or the story if it's a script or whatever. And again, even within the story, I can use the ladder of abstraction because I mentioned dialogue quite a bit. This is where it's really important to know, is the character, say, that intellectual type that would resort to the middle and upper rungs of the ladder of abstraction, where maybe they think they're better than everyone else because, again, I'm just defaulting to these similar terms. They know a lot about philosophy. They know all the jargon words about postmodernism and et cetera, et cetera. Then you actually for that person's dialogue, use abstract words. Because I'm not saying it's a good way to communicate, but it might be true to the character. So it's a very important point if you're a storyteller, that for as much as I said, do not use the middle rungs. If your character is very high and mighty, very high class, very intellectual, maybe it makes sense for them to talk like that. And maybe it even makes sense for all your characters to talk like that. Let's say it's a story about a bunch of college professors. Yeah, maybe they are very abstract in their language. It's very important to understand that when we talk about using the ladder of abstraction or the trampoline of abstraction, that we want to focus on being true to the character or being clear to your audience. So whichever makes more sense for the situation. If you enjoyed that clip, I just have 3 things I want you to do. The first thing is hit subscribe, follow the channel for new content. Second thing, go and watch the full episode. If you like this clip, you're probably going to enjoy what I talk about in the entire podcast. And the third thing, which I think is the most important, go and buy my new book, Off With His Head. It's on Amazon right now. Not only is it the best way to support this channel and the content I'm making, but I truly believe that it is a foundational book, something that can provide you existential security in an increasingly polarized and radicalized and chaotic world. This is a book of hope for people who are stuck living with a cynical worldview. We are living at a time where our rational mind is actually short-circuiting because of all the information overload we're receiving. We need more silence and stillness, not more information. Wisdom comes from the gap between thoughts, the gap between sounds, the gap between the news. And that is what I want to convey in this book. So if that sounds appealing to you, then go right now, click the Amazon link, go and buy that book. You will thank yourself later.